Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Friday morning, August the 12th. I'm glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and I'm just putting the link into the chat room to what we're looking at. I'm just, been on Robert Burney's web pages for 3 months now, probably about 3 months, and just really looking at the inner child work and also codependence and whatnot. Robert Burney is a codependence counselor. He's a codependence therapist. He's a grief counselor. He's an author. He's written a book called Dependence: The Dance of Wounded Souls, and he's also a spiritual teacher, and he's got some great stuff here. I hope everybody will check it out. That's from www.joy2, the joy, Joy2, the number 2, MBU.com. And so what we're looking at yesterday really is just part of the inner child healing work. It's the third page on what he's written on inner child healing work. And the title is Emotional Balance Through the Fear. So it's right. It's by Robert Burney, Burney, and he's got some great stuff. Like if you go to his site index, you can see that he's got like really lots and lots of information here. We're just covering a certain portion of it, and there's just tons and tons of stuff here. So hopefully everyone will go and check this out. So yeah, I'm just waking up and having a coffee, and I just appreciate everybody who's tuning into my shows. I'm not a counselor or therapist or anything like that. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my shows on Blog Talk Radio. I'm just a survivor of child abuse. I just wanted to be one more voice out here speaking out against child abuse. Also, just, like this show, One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, is my healing journey, really. And so you have to listen at your own discretion to all of my shows, right? And, you have to, abuse is a very sensitive topic, right? And it can bother people. It can also trigger survivors. So, like, if you're just on your healing journey, just starting out, you want to be careful what you're listening to, and you have to know what's good for you to listen to. Ultimately, that is your choice. And so you have to make the right choice for yourself. And I don't sugarcoat it. I just tell it like it is. And so it's, my shows are definitely graphic, and you have to just be careful what you're listening to, anything like this, right? So make the decision for yourself, and if you think the show might bother you, then you just turn it off. Then listen at your own discretion. Young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my shows, because I'm all about protecting children, and that's what I do. So, you have to ask, have an adult okay it that you can listen to my shows. So you'll have to have an adult listen to the show with you, or listen to one of my shows, and see if they are really age appropriately okay for you, right? So we'll get right into this. We left off looking at, we were sort of, a quarter of the way down through the page, and looking at emotional balance through the fear. This is all inner child work. And we sort of left off at this changing our relationship with fear. And he's actually talking about fear, like real fear. And he says, like Robert Burney, he says, in recovery, we are reprogramming our ego defenses to help us open up to the truth of who we really are, instead of buying into the lie that we are defective, shameful beings. So we are changing our toolbox for dealing with life from one that is full of dysfunctional, self-destructive tools to tools that actually work to help us get free of the old programming and open up to having moments of joy and happiness in our life experience. So just, really, even society, Robert Burney is really quite, spiritual minded, and he's talking about society as a whole, being dysfunctional and being, having these dysfunctional belief systems and these core belief systems that are really quite damaging. That it's shameful to be human, that it's, that it's shameful that we would have feelings about anything, that it's shameful that we, if we make a mistake, there must be something wrong with us, we must be defective, and I think, most people on the planet would probably relate to having, at some point felt like that, or been told they were, lesser than, or not measuring up to the standards that they should be, sort of thing. And so what he's really talking about, like the whole on a level, whether it's just one person or one of us going through trying to change these things, or even as a society, right? So when you look at his stuff, you can see he's very much looking at the whole picture, not just one part of it. So it's quite interesting, but I really like Robert Burney, and I like what he has to say. Some of the stuff is a little bit over my head, but for the most part, it's good, So he says, changing our relationship with fear, the number one tool of the ego is fear. So anytime we feel fear, there are multiple levels involved and multiple perspectives from which that fear is originating. And so, fear is quite interesting. I mean, I don't, like I don't sit around thinking about fear all that often. You know what I mean? I don't sit around just thinking, oh, well, I must be afraid of this or I must be afraid of that. You know what I mean? But he says, and like all the other emotions we experience, fear has a purpose and needs to be honored as a gift. So emotions do not have value in and of themselves. They just are, he says. And what give emotions a positive or negative value is how we react to them. So he says most of us learn to have negative reactions to emotions because our perspective of our own emotions was all messed up in childhood due to the messages and role modeling of the adults around us. Well, that's very true because we're just sponges, children. We're just picking up what's whatever is around us. And however people are coping and dealing with, our parents or whoever was raising us, that's how we're going to cope and deal, because we just learned it. These are learned behaviors, right? So he says fear is an important tool in living. He says it is there to protect us, to help us avoid situations and people who will do us harm. It is our relationship to fear that is dysfunctional because of our childhood experiences. So he says there's a level of fear that is unavoidable in being human, and that is the fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown, he says. So this human experience is a process that involves inherent conflict between the continuously changing nature of life and the human's ego need to survive. In order to ensure survival, which is the ego's appointed task, the human ego needs to define things like what is food, what is friend or enemy. So who am I and how do I relate to them? What can hurt me and what brings me pleasure? These are questions, right? It also learned that it is healthy to have a fear of the unknown. It was important to check an unknown cave for saber-toothed tigers before strolling into it. He says, as a result, the ego fears change and craves security and stability. But because life is constantly changing, security and stability can only be temporary. He says, fear of the unknown is a natural, normal part of being human. It has a purpose and deserves to be honored as something which serves us. But like our relationship with all aspects of our being, our relationship with that fear is dysfunctional. So it says the damaged ego responds to its programming by generating fear of the things we learned to fear as a child, making mistakes, doing it wrong, being emotional, speaking our truth, taking risks, being alone, not being alone, whatever he says here. We then empower the fear by focusing on it, magnifying it, generally giving it the power to define us and our life, or by denying it, which also gives it power, because in denying our fear, we are denying ourselves and reality. So going to either extreme results in the inability to see the situation clearly. That's kind of interesting what he said there. I guess so. That's got to be part of it. That whole issue of, okay, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to do anything wrong. Taking risks. Being alone, not being alone. Whatever it is in our life that keeps us from doing things or even just existing. It's kind of like, we are going to make mistakes. We are going to do it wrong. I mean, there's no perfect person on this planet. I know there's some people think they are. You know what I mean? I've met people that thought they were, but it's kind of a joke. You know what I mean? It's like, whatever. Go on your merry way. You know what I mean? Figure it out. We all make mistakes, right? Well, we need to. Like, my thing is I really try to learn from my mistakes because, I'm trying to obviously to grow. You know what I mean? And so, like, I don't, it's harsh when you make a mistake. I've made some huge mistakes in my lifetime, and at work even, like as an adult, you know what I mean? Like, I've made some major mistakes, and really thought that I'd be fired for it. I was like, man, I should be fired for this because I've made some real dandy mistakes. You know what I mean? Usually when I do something, I really do well. So if I make a mistake, it's really bad. You know what I mean? So I've had to learn, like, hey, that's part of life, and that's the way it goes. But when I was younger, I had a lot of problems with that. You know what I mean? And that's just from always feeling lesser than, and always feeling like, I just don't measure up. I just don't count. Growing up in this abusive home that I did grow up in, it was just what it did was just kind of hammer in there that maybe I am dumb, maybe I am stupid, maybe I am this kid that my parents told me I was, maybe I am going to just be a failure as an adult, and maybe I just won't ever do anything with myself, and I'll just waste my life, because it's all the negative stuff you hear from growing up around dysfunctional, abusive parents, right, or people. And it's just over the years on my own, really, I've had to sort of work through this stuff and say, okay, no, people make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, and I started to really pay attention to that and say, it's not just me making mistakes, and it's not because I'm stupid. I just need to learn from them and really, and move forward, right? So I am a lot better about it now that I'm older. But I know when I was younger, I had a hard time with that because it sort of just proved to me that, oh yeah, I'm everything that my parents said I am. You know what I mean? Because I'm making these mistakes, and then I would just internalize that and sort of almost self-sabotage from it. You know what I mean? Or just even go further down into the into the whole idea of of my own belief system that I didn't really count, and I'm just an idiot like my parents said I was, right? Sort of thing. But now that I'm older, I can see right through that, right? Which is great. I'm glad that I finally figured it out. So he says, because her ego was programmed to react to life from fear, negativity, scarcity, and lack, again, due to emotional trauma we experienced and the messages and role modeling of the adults around us, the disease focuses on and magnifies fear, and then it scrambles around trying to find something to cover up and repress the very fear it is generating. So the disease blows the fear way out of proportion and then leads us to addictive or compulsive behavior as a way of stuffing the fear. It's kind of interesting. I don't think that I have any kind of compulsive behaviors now or addictive behaviors because of fear, because I don't have really like a whole lot of fear. I have some fear, obviously, just normal fear, I would say, but I'm not like sitting around petrified in fear of just about anything, because I'm as an adult, like getting away from my abusive family, even in my 20s and 30s, I realized that I had choices and that it was always that I could really do well for myself just holding a job down and trying to incorporate good things into my life, you know what I mean? So that's what I mean, I'm just high functioning, right? Like I'm very high functioning. I'm not high maintenance. I'm more high functioning than anything. Even though I grew up in this hellhole, for some reason I've been able to keep it together, you know what I mean? And I don't know why. I mean, who knows why? It very well could be because I spend a whole lot of time thinking about things. I don't just like when I need to think about something, I just think about it. So I'll spend the time looking at certain things in my life, and I'll spend months on it if I have to, or even a year, right? So I've always been the type to give myself as much time as I need to think things through, instead of just sort of running from one thing to the next and not getting anything resolved within myself. But the thing is there's always been this underlying pain and grief and sorrow and misery from being abused and from growing up watching my family be destroyed by this whole, dysfunction and this whole evil garbage that my parents had started out for us. And so as an adult, I realized on one hand I could function, no problem. I could do things. I don't really I have just normal fear of trying to keep myself safe and trying to keep myself, free from harm. As a young teenager, I didn't have any of that. Like I just didn't care about my body and I didn't care about my life, and so I put myself in a lot of dangerous situations as a teenager, and especially an older teen. And that was not good, right? And I mean, those times did I have fear? Not much, because I was like, if you kill me, I don't really care, because I just want to die anyway, so you'd be doing me a favor. And so I put myself in some seriously, dangerous situations as a young person, up until the age of 21, when I decided to change my lifestyle. And I thought, man, I really need to change this. I don't want to end up dead in a gutter, or dead in a drug deal gone bad, or dead from some violent assault, or because I was really putting myself out there in a lot of harm's way, And I changed that. I thought, no, I don't want to go out that way. You know what I mean? Like I really want to try to have a good life. And this was when I was about 21, 22 years old. I started to change my tune and started to change things for myself. And, I still have done some crazy stuff, and I've still done some absolutely insane stuff, even in my 30s, that most people wouldn't do. You know what I mean? They'd be like, I don't think so. But for me, I kind of have to, because I don't have any support. So, like, when I go off to do something, and I moved to Canada, and then I left my sweetheart because we were not getting along, and I lost my baby, and halfway through, and I was, I didn't go to the hospital. I just, I didn't go to the hospital. I just was in labor. I really should have gone to the hospital, but I was so used to suffering on my own, and not being taken to the hospital when I was young, when I needed to go to the hospital. You know what I mean? So I just I've been so used to having to deal with stuff on my own that sometimes I do put myself in harm's way just because, that's what I'm used to. Right? And so I've started to kind of learn how to change that too. I'm trying to anyway. And then I left my sweetheart and went to on my own to Vancouver Island. So traveling around, really without any support, really people not even really knowing where I'm at, like anything could happen. Right? I was out walking around, all the time by myself, and people would think, well, that's just insane, out in the middle of nowhere. You know what I mean? But I don't have those kind of fears because I'm like, well, I have to live my life. I'm not going to live behind a closed door just afraid to make a move. I'm a bit adventurous, you know what I mean? And not overly adventurous, but somewhat adventurous. I don't mind taking some risks. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to go out there and start playing chicken on the freeway. It's like first of all, because I can't run. You know what I mean? I can't run because my ankle and my legs just busted, and I just can't run. So I can't go play chicken on the freeway. But the thing is, I don't have fear like that kind of fear. Really, I don't have. You know what I mean? So this stuff I don't relate to. A lot of the stuff about the fear stuff because I have some normal fear. I mean, I was almost attacked by this guy one time. Luckily, I was smart and I used my head and I got out of the situation. But I was walking home from work really late one night. But I only lived a block and a half from where I worked. And as I left the place where I was working, I was walking down the street towards my apartment, and I could see this guy walking towards me, and I knew he was going to bother me. I knew he was. The minute I saw him, I thought, this guy is going to bother me. And, of course, I was wearing a kitchen uniform. I looked like a guy dressed up in one of those, kitchen uniforms because I was a chef at the restaurant, right, a cook. And so I had my kitchen jacket on and my pants. So I was surprised he could even tell I was a woman, right? And my hair was back, there's just no way he could really tell I was a woman, but he did. He figured it out, and he started bothering me. So he grabbed onto me and grabbed onto my shoulders and was actually trying to push me down into a yard. Right, he was literally trying to get me behind some bushes. Right, and luckily I was using my head, and he was pretty drunk, and I thought I could take this dude on, no problem. And I thought if I have to, I'll kick the crap out of him. You know what I mean? But if I don't have to, I'll just leave him alone. So there was no traffic or anything. It was unfortunate. I was waiting for a car to come by or something. But actually, within about 3 seconds, got away from him. I just flat out told him I have to go, and I ripped him away from my arm, from grabbing a hold of me, and I just pushed him away like a big shove. And he just looked at me like, oh, this is going to be too tough on. And that's the situations that people sometimes find themselves in. You do have to be very careful what you're doing. You know what I mean? And like I don't like to put myself in harm's way. I mean, when I was a teenager, I did, but as an adult, because I now enjoy life and I want to try to live it. When I was a young kid, I didn't care. Right? I was like, kill me, I don't care. You know what I mean? I was like, really, I got kind of asking for it. But now, because I'm older and I can see that life is good, and I've made some, amazing progress in my healing journey, through the years, even without realizing it. I want to live, right? So I don't want to put myself in harm's way. So, I mean, having a little fear is not a bad thing as far as that goes. You know what I mean? We do have to keep ourselves safe, and we have to protect ourselves. And, so I don't really have issues with these types of things. But as far as doing things wrong, I'm always willing to try. You know what I mean? So I don't really, like this fear stuff would have been something that I would have experienced in my teens and preteens, where I was just afraid to really, make a move, really, because I knew I was going to fail. It was already just a setup for a fail. So, I didn't do well in school. I didn't even try, because I was like, well, I'm just a loser. I'm everything my parents said I was. I'm just a loser. I'm just a bad kid. I'm just no good. I'm worthless, useless, rotten. I'm a whore. I'm a slut, right? All these things that my parents had told me over the years, and, to my face and in my face. And, it's like that manifested really through my preteens and then my teen years, and then in my 20s, I started to gain a lot of confidence. I started to realize, hey, I don't have to listen to that BS. So something inside me just, I don't know what it is, maybe people that influenced my life, which I would like to think that has a lot to do with it. I had a lot of positive people outside of my family who were very good to me and, said all the right things, really. And so that's why, I think I'm kind of really blessed or lucky, whatever you want to say, in that area, because I did have some positive influence from people outside of my home. No one within my family, right? There was no sibling or anybody else in my family that was actually supportive. But I had huge support from people outside. And that's just because my friends' parents were pretty smart. You know what I mean? They knew what to say, and they were looking in on a situation. They were always watching out for me, and they were until they moved, right? So I mean, they did that as long as they could. And then I had other people that were really cool. You know what I mean? Like I had some good teachers. So I mean, there was people in my life that I kind of counted on really to be that support, even as minimal as it was. You know, I sort of took advantage of it, whereas maybe some other kids might not have. You know what I mean? So I was really searching and looking for that. So, but he says. Robert Purdy says, this is the essence of the dysfunction. We live our life reacting to fear and the shame that the disease empowers and then helps us avoid by causing us to focus on something outside of ourselves as the cause and or cure for the core place within us where we feel empty, so where we feel unlovable and unworthy. So he says we live our life reacting to fear and the shame that the disease empowers and then helps us avoid by causing us to focus on something outside of ourselves. Blaming that as the cause, right, or the cure for the core place within us where we feel empty, so where we feel unlovable and unworthy. That's kind of interesting because I still have some of this issues going on, right? Especially just looking at my inner wounded child. You know, like I mean, there's a whole bunch of inner children in there, but I'm talking about the one that my parents painted a picture. That specifically the one that I feel was a picture that my parents painted for me. And that little wounded child is still there too, and I'm trying to figure out how to change the way I see that child, you know. And I'm doing a lot of inner child work. Obviously, this is why I'm doing this work on Robert Purdy's web pages. But you know, there's quite a few inner children that I've managed to get in touch with, which I thought I only had one. And so then I started to see that there was a lot more than just one, right? And they were all from the places where I got stuck. So where the trauma occurred, or where I was really disappointed or let down as a child, or, you know, where it just manifested and I just got stuck. So there's quite a few in there, right? And I just thought there was just one. But maybe that one that I see, that inner child that I feel like, you know, that still feels that so unloved, so unlovable, and so unworthy. Maybe that one is just the whole of all of them. You know what I mean? And really that's the core belief system, basically. Maybe that's just the core of the whole thing that I need to kind of, you know, work to change. You know what I mean? Because I don't feel like other people can see me like that. You know what I mean? It's just the way that I see myself, the way that I see myself when I look inside. So it's not like I think, oh, the whole world sees me as this ugly, wounded, you know, ugly, useless, worthless child. That's just not it at all. It's mainly how I see myself, and I think that's the picture that my parents and you know, other dysfunctional, evil, abusive people put on me. You know what I mean? So it wasn't my fault. So now we have to learn how to heal. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. He says we are afraid of our own emotions, of all the repressed feelings and unresolved grief that we are carrying. We learn to be afraid of our own anger and pain and fear. We feel afraid of our fear of our own emotions. It is this fear once or twice removed that is paralyzing. He says that is the fear of our own fear is our greatest block to healing. Because we are afraid of our own pain and anger, and then we are afraid of our fear of our own pain and anger. So we're afraid of the fear of the fears. I like what Robert Purdy says. But you know, it's quite interesting because he says, you know, we learn to be afraid of our own anger and pain and fear. I don't know. I guess that's when I think about it. I mean, like I was always afraid to had a fear of actually releasing my rage, you know, because I thought for sure it would kill me because I have a damaged heart, and I'm just not physically well. You know, I mean, not physically well enough to just go and scream my head off. You know, I can't even hardly breathe. So I'm like, okay, if I'm going to let that kind of rage out, man, that's going to who knows what that's going to do to my body. You know what I mean? Like I really, it's not good, right? So I'm thinking, I don't know if I can really do that. I don't even know if I should. It might give me a seriously bad headache. And, I might not even recover from something like that. So I thought, well, I need to learn how to handle it a little bit differently. You know what I mean? So I used to imagine myself going out into the middle of a field somewhere just screaming my head off, just allowing all that rage and that anger and that hatred and that shame and that those tears of grief and sorrow and sadness come out as raging screams, you know. And I wanted to do that. That's what I felt I needed to do. Because I didn't want to do it in my apartment because then somebody would think was being killed or that I was killing somebody, right? Thought for sure somebody would call the police, and they would. And I would if I heard somebody screaming their head off like that. I'd be phoning. That's the thing. I thought, okay, I have to go out in the middle of a field somewhere or someplace where they're not going to hear that. Somebody will think somebody's being murdered, and I never got around to it. But actually, what the issue is actually over the years, I don't have that rage anymore. Over these last 4 years since I've been on my healing journey, especially, right? That's where I still had that rage when I started my healing journey, but since then, about 4.5 years actually now, that rage really isn't there. It's really dissipated. Like what I have now is real anger, and it's appropriate. I have totally appropriate anger. Like I'm not hurting myself. I'm not hurting somebody else. I'm just angry about what I need to be angry about, which is totally appropriate. I'm angry that my parents hurt me. I'm angry that my brother hurt me. I'm angry that some other people in my life have hurt me. I'm angry that my family doesn't support me. My immediate dysfunctional family, the one that I don't talk to anymore. Now, if I wanted to go shopping, I could phone them and I could say, hey, let's go shopping. They'd come and pick me up. But if I want to talk about stuff and say, I need to talk about some of this stuff. Let's talk about this. Let's get through some of this together. It would be absolutely no way, right? I mean, they will not discuss because they're in denial. See? So they won't even they wouldn't even begin to think about that, right? I know this. So it's like they're not real with me. They're not real. Like they're just playing this denial game, just so that they can get through life, right? And that's what they're doing. See, and I'm working on healing. So I'm like, okay, I'm not doing denial. So you guys all have to do denial on your own. So, I mean, this is what I told my abuser dad when he came over the other day. I had a run-in with my abuser dad. It went really well, but the thing is it really bothered me because here he was sitting in my apartment, and I really never want to see him again. So I was like, oh, well, I have to deal with this. And, that's just the way it goes. The thing is it went really well. And I did tell him. I said, I can't do denial anymore with you guys. You're going to have to just do it. You guys just do denials together. Leave me out of it. Like, I want nothing really to do with you guys anymore because I'm not doing denial, right? So I'm in your face, and you guys are just pretending and just playing this stupid game that you've played your whole lives, and I'm not playing it anymore. And you set this stupid thing up for me in the first place, and so you can all do that together, right? And what it did by my healing journey actually separated me from my family. But the thing is, from my dysfunctional, abusive family, let's get this straight. A lot of people, would say, "Oh, you don't want to separate from your family." Yes, I do. My dad was one of my main abusers, and he's an evil, twisted man. You know what I mean? Not only that, my brother is just as bad. You know what I mean? Why would I want to hang around with him? He's very hateful. He hates me. Literally says he hates my guts, and he hates what I'm doing. And my sister is one of my abusers as well. You know what I mean? She was not supportive. She got me in a whole lot of trouble as a child. And most of the beatings that I took that I could account for came because of her, and because of her going to my mother and saying that I was doing this or I was doing that. So my sister did nothing to protect me, even though she knew my mom would actually beat me to a bloody mess. So whether that was a fat lip or a broken nose or whatever, or beating with a like she knew that my mother would cream me. You know what I mean? Because my mother hated me. And so my sister did nothing to try to protect me. I was 5 years younger than her, and she should have been there for me. You know what I mean? I hold her completely accountable. I know that if I was a 5-year-old older sister, I would have been there trying to protect my younger sister. You know what I mean? And so my sister to me is weak. And so she sees herself as weak. So when she sees me looking at her, she gets mad because she sees the way I see her, which is weak. And so, our relationship can't go anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do? Wish her the best. But my family is like completely cut off from me now, and it was the best thing I could do. But I guess we'll have to pick the rest of this up Monday. So you can check this out. That's www.joy2meu, joy, J-O-Y, 2, the number 2, meu.com, Robert Burney's web pages. We're not even halfway through the page here, so we'll pick this back up Monday. But, whatever you do, you make sure that you get some help, you know what I mean? So many times we don't have support in our lives. So many times we just be on our own and there's nobody really around that cares. Well, if that's the case, then you call a crisis line, you know what I mean? You find somebody, but you make sure that you do yourself, you do what's right for you, and that is to get some help. You don't, Don't allow yourself to give up, and don't allow yourself to give in to this whole thing. Because, we deserve so much better. But it won't happen unless we make it happen. No one's going to do it for us. That's a guarantee. So make sure that you do the right thing. If you are having a hard time, over the weekend, there's nobody to talk to, you phone a crisis line, you phone a distress line, whatever it is, but you make sure you get some help, right? Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll talk to you real soon. Take good care. Bye-bye.